Hundreds of people packed the Berkeley City Council meeting last night for its consideration of a resolution calling for a ceasefire in Gaza.
We demand a city council that is anti-genocide, anti-apartheid, and pro-human rights. Silence is complicity. No one is safe in a world that does nothing in the face of genocide.
I'm hoping that you can see that I, a Palestinian American, am human too. It's absolutely disheartening and heart-wrenching to see Berkeley silence their constituents and your community members. The vast majority of people here are simply asking you, our local officials, to call an end to the bloodshed. If you want the people to stop asking for it to be added to the agenda, then the logical thing to do is to add it to the agenda.
I'm speaking on behalf of Jewish Voice for Peace Berkeley. Calling for a ceasefire is not anti-Semitic, and it does not make Berkeley Jews unsafe.
As we acknowledge, of course, the very important things of denouncing the anti-Semitism we've seen and the increases denouncing homophobia, we can do those things, and we can call for a ceasefire.
Mayor Jesse Arreguin, your silence on Israel's massacre of Palestinians has exposed the corruption of your values as a representative of our community. By not taking a stance against Israel's occupation and massacre of Palestinians, you have single-handedly proven you have no loyalty to the principles you campaign on. You have no right being voted into California State Senate. Call for a ceasefire now.
I'm totally aghast at what's going on and the non-response of municipal authorities in this country. You got to do something.
Our government is supporting Israel in its genocidal campaign. Our tax dollars are funding the weapons our government is sending to the Israeli military.
My heart breaks for my ancestors whose legacy is being perverted and used as justification for the genocide and colonization of Palestinians. I ask you, council members, how many must die for you to feel the urgency of this call?
Passing a ceasefire resolution may feel like just a symbolic gesture, a drop in the bucket of change. And it is a symbolic gesture, but symbols have meaning. Symbols are how we render our values more tangible. Look at the majority of who's coming to your meetings. Listen to them.
Please do whatever you can. This is the town of Mario Savio, the free speech town. What is the hell is going on? We need to have ceasefire now.
You've been standing silent for weeks. If this was your child being killed, how would you like it? You're allowing Palestinian children to be killed, hospitals to be bombed in your names. You need to listen to this community. This community wants you to put forth a ceasefire resolution. That's the least you can freaking do. The very minimum.
I'm sure you're all tired and annoyed and hoping that this goes away. And I just want you to know that it won't go away. More people keep coming. The world has woken and they refuse to sit in silence any longer.
Enough is enough. We call for a ceasefire now. That has been our message for weeks now. And yet the city council has not been listening to their constituents, to the people they have been elected to serve and to represent. So because of the lack of them listening to us, we the people have come together, community members in solidarity for the people of Palestine, to pass our own ceasefire resolution. That if they won't do it, if the city of Berkeley will not do it, then we the people will. We the people will pass our own ceasefire resolution in solidarity and support with the people of Palestine. We stand for their liberation, their freedom, the end to the occupation, the end to this genocide. I am so happy to formally announce the Berkeley's People's Resolution. And I would like if we could all listen to this resolution and affirmation. We've named it Supporting Life, Land, and Humanity, Amplifying Global Calls for an Immediate and Permanent Ceasefire in Gaza, Accountability and End to U.S. Complicity in Israel's Unrelenting Genocide of Palestinians. Whereas Berkeley set historical precedents in its leadership when it became one of the first sanctuary cities in the country and the first U.S. city to divest from apartheid South Africa, and
whereas Berkeley stands united against hate, both here in our city and globally. Whereas we mourn the thousands of civilians killed since October 7th, 2023, including over 17,000 in Gaza and 1,200 in Israel, and the hundreds of thousands of lives lost since 1948 due to the violent occupation and dispossession of El Nakba, which resulted in the displacement of approximately 750,000 Palestinians.
And whereas the current siege on Gaza would not be possible without U.S. military aid in the form of $3.8 billion a year derived from American taxes. And whereas 68% of Americans agree that Israel should call a ceasefire and try to negotiate, demonstrating the majority of Americans do not support the continued military aid.
And whereas the conflation of anti-Semitism with anti-Zionism endangers Jews, Palestinians, and anyone who advocates for Palestinian liberation, and is an exploitation of the very real history of the persecution of Jewish people. And whereas in violation of international law, Israel has enforced 16 years of complete sea, air, and land blockade in Gaza, which human rights organizations call the world's largest open-air prison. And whereas the last 2 months comprise Israel's fifth and worst bombardment of Gaza in less than 2 decades, causing the displacement of the majority of 2.2 million Palestinians and total destruction of civilization in Gaza.
Whereas Israel's collective punishment, starvation, forced displacement, indiscriminate bombing of vital infrastructure, restriction of humanitarian aid, mass murder of civilians, and use of dehumanizing language and intent to remove Palestinians from Gaza all amount to nothing short of ethnic cleansing and genocide. And whereas hundreds of thousands of lives are in imminent danger if an immediate and permanent ceasefire is not achieved and humanitarian aid is not delivered immediately. Whereas the U.S. government holds immense power to save Palestinian and Israeli lives, but instead continues to block efforts to stop the war and is giving further military aid to Israel.
Now, therefore, be it resolved that the people of the City of Berkeley call on Berkeley City Council and the mayor to 1. Urge the Biden administration to immediately call for and facilitate an immediate and permanent ceasefire to urgently end the current violence. And 2. Call upon the Biden administration to promptly send and facilitate the entry of humanitarian assistance to Gaza. And
Number 3, call for the end of the Israeli siege on Gaza, the end of the blockade in Gaza, and the end of settler violence in the West Bank. And number 4, demand that the Biden administration immediately stop funding Israel's genocide in Gaza. And 5, demand that the Biden administration advocate for the release of all Israeli and Palestinian hostages and political prisoners.
Be it further resolved that the City of Berkeley endorses the Congressional Resolution 786 calling for an immediate ceasefire. Be it further resolved that the City of Berkeley vows to combat all forms of hate, including Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, and ethno-nationalism. So we as the people will vote right now to pass this and make sure that we give it to Berkeley City Council. And once Berkeley City Council has it, we want them to adopt it and send it to President Joe Biden, the Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, Vice President Kamala Harris, Governor Gavin Newsom, Representative Barbara Lee, Senator Alex Padilla, and Senator LaFonza Butler.
And now, on behalf of the community of Berkeley, a community that stands for supporting Palestine and calling for an immediate and permanent ceasefire, I call for the motion to pass this resolution.
second!
All in favor say aye.
Aye!
All against? Right answer. It passes. The resolution has been adopted by the City of Berkeley.